Hi, this is Computer Science 30S, Scratch, Lesson 5, Building Your Own Blocks. So a common structure to use in a computer program is the idea of what we call a subroutine. In Build Your Own Blocks, this is referred to as a block. And so for the next few lessons, you're going to have to make sure that you're using BYOB. Alternatively, you could use Scratch 2.0. It also has its own blocks, but these notes refer to BYOB. So once again, we're going to be using what we call the idea of a subroutine. BYOB calls this a block. This is basically a bit of script that gets a name. When that bit of script needs to be used more than once, the script simply calls that name. So what we're going to be doing is we're really going to be creating, in BYOB, we're going to be creating, we've got all these blocks over here like forever and all these different routines kind of thing. We're going to be creating a new block ourselves and giving it its own name. That's what a subroutine is. So this allows the programmer to use pieces of code over and over. Higher level languages like Java might refer to these as methods, and the concept is pretty much the same. They're just bits of code that you reuse over and over again. Apparently this guy's name is Alonzo. That's what his name is. It's Scratch the cat in Scratch. This guy's name is Alonzo. So if you click on Make a Block at the bottom of the Variables tab, or right click on the scripting area and choose Make a Block, you will get you'll open up the Make a Block dialog box, and you get to choose which tab the block should go in. In other words, what color is it going to be. Our block is going to draw a square, so let us choose motion. So I'm just going to do that over here in my BYOB. We go to Variables, and at the bottom here we have Make a Block. And I'm going to make it a motion, and I'm going to call it Draw Square. I think that's what I call it in the notes. When we selected motion, the block became blue. We now have the option of making blocks of different shapes. Right now, however, we're just going to make a regular command block. And yes, I called it Draw Square. Looks like I used a space there. So let's go back, make that change. Draw Square. Okay, now when we click OK, you should see that the block editor below. For now, don't worry about what atomic checkbox means. Okay, so you should get this when you go ahead and click OK. And there it is. Use the blocks from the regular menus to create a script that draws a square as shown below. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the block Draw Square using existing ones. I'm going to repeat 4 times, I'm going to move 100 steps, and turn 90 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Like so. And when you click OK, you should be able to use this block as if it were a regular block. Since you created the block as a motion block, it'll end up at the bottom of the motion tab. And then you can go ahead and try this bit of code to draw a square. So let's just go ahead and do that. I'm going to click OK here, and you'll see here under motion that block is now there. And so now I can do something like this. Just see here what I do. I have a pen down, draw a square. Pen down, and I'm going to go to motion, and I'm going to draw a square. So instead of having to write the draw a square code every time, I just do this, and now when I run it, he draws a square. Yay. Okay, let's move on. If we want to improve the draw square block, you've created a block that draws a square, but it only draws a square where each side length is of length 100 steps. It would be great if we could specify how long we wanted each side to be. We will edit the block to accept what we call an argument or an input, which tells it the length of the square it has to draw. We're going to go back and we're going to edit the block. Right click on the new block and select edit to go back to the block editor. So let's go to our BYOB, and we're going to right click on here. We're going to edit, and we're going to make some changes. So block editor, notice that when you move the mouse over the top row of the block, some plus signs show up, and you can see them down here in the picture. When you click on these plus signs, you can add more text or arguments. When you click on the text between the plus signs, you can delete or modify that text. Click on the plus sign at the far right as shown below. So we're going to click right there. and we create an input name. When you click on the plus sign on the far right, you should get the following dialog box. With this dialog box, we can select if we want to add input, which is orange, or more text, which is blue. We want to add the input size, the size of the squares. So we type size, select input name, and click OK. So we're going to put size in here, and we're going to select input name. It's already selected. Now we have a variable inside our block definition. It should say draw square with a size. Let me see if I got that right. We're going to have to click OK. No, I've got it in blue, don't I? I'm going to have to edit this block. Size should be an input name, not a title text. There we go. Now size is an actual orange one. And now I'm good. And you'll notice here that it's created a little box right there because that's where I'm going to put a number in. Drag the variable size down into the move block. Whenever we need a new copy of a variable, we just grab the copy from that variable in the top row where they are defined. So in other words, oh, I haven't finished my editing here. Let's go back. Let's edit. Let's put this away. Let's edit from here. Edit. We can use size. I can put it in there. So size is the argument that we call. It gets sent to this. And then whenever we want to use size, whatever is sent to here is used wherever I use it. Also down here, kind of thing. When we click OK, you'll see that our draw square block now takes an argument. It has that box. We can put different numbers in the blank and draw squares of different sizes. So let's just go ahead and try that. That's good. Let's use our draw square. Let's just do a couple here. Just for fun. I can put any number I want in there. I can put 50, 25, 200, and run it. And it draws the 3 different size squares. So we've made our own block, which is the name of the program, build your own blocks. Okay, so we're going to make a draw shape block. Now you're going to make a block that takes 2 inputs. We want to create a draw shape block that takes an input for the size of the sides as well as the number of sides. And we're going to call these input arguments size and sides. By the way, you can create the inputs to this block in exactly the same way as we did in the previous section by clicking on the plus signs to add input. However, with a shortcut, you can also type the names of the input as shown below. The percent signs indicate that the word should be an input. You should feel comfortable with either of these entry methods. So when you're actually naming it, if you put a percent in there, then it creates those and it creates them as variables. Fortunately, the size of the text field where you can type in the name of the block and any percent input shortcuts is limited. If you find yourself running out of room, we recommend that you just name the block and use the plus signs later to add inputs. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so we're going to try and create a block called draw shape that accepts 2 inputs with the size and the number of sides. So I'm going to ask that you put the recording on pause here for a second. Try that, and then the answer is on the next page. Okay, you should have had that done by now. So here's what it looks like. We're going to have draw shape, size, and sides. We're going to repeat sides times. We're going to move size steps. And here's the important one here. You have to take 360 divide by the number of sides. You'll also notice that the block draw shapes has 2 input boxes to indicate that there are 2 numbers to be entered. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to get rid of these guys here. I'm going to edit this. I'm going to add another one, and I'm going to call it, what did I call it on my notes? I called it sides. And it's an input name. Okay, so sides is there. And I have to repeat sides times, move size steps, and then take 360 divided by the number of sides. So sides goes in there, and in here, I'm going to use an operator, and I'm going to put 360 divided by the number of sides. Now when I use my block that I've created. I've got 2 squares in there. And the first one, I think, is the size, and the second one, I believe, is the number of sides. So this should create a triangle, 3-sided figure, size 100. Let's see if it does. And there's my triangle. All right, that's good. Two issues with this. It'd be nice if there was some text in the box to indicate what variable it's asking for. We want to make sure that the block only accepts numeric inputs, not words. You can't draw a figure that has yes number of sides or Bob number of sides. It has to be a number. To take care of this, open up the draw shape block for editing, click on the size variable. This dialog box will come up, and click on the right arrow to open up more options for the size variable. So let's go ahead and do that. Move the draw square over. We're going to edit this, and we're going to click on sides. We're going to go over here. And you can see that there are now many different options. We're going to change the input type to a number and add the default value, size value, to a number of your choice, like 100. So we're going to change it to a number, and I'm going to give it a default number of 100. That way it's always 100 unless you change it. Okay, and now in my block over here, you can see that I've got a rounded figure here, which means that it's a number, and I've got my default in there. The other option is to make the type any type, which is this kind right here, any type, which is the square one, and default the words size, so you know exactly what it is. Let me just show you how that would work. Edit that. We're going to make it any type, and we're going to put the word size in there. This one's probably your better choice. Now when you use it, you can see that it's actually telling you what you're putting in it. So it's the size. Did I do that backwards? I may have. This should have been sides, I think. The disadvantage to this is that the block will accept text as an input and then may not run correctly. So your choice, which one you think is better. I'd like you to do the same now for the sides variable and test it. And I'd like you to try, you might remember this from grade 10 from 20S, see if you can create this now with your new block. You now have a draw shape that does triangles. See if you can create this with some loops and using your new block. You could try this one as well too, remembering that it's 360 divided by the number of sides, right? And here, a circle is 360 sides, okay? Practice only here, play around with blocks. There's no assignment this lesson.